Picture a city called Victoria, waking up under a sky the color of spilled gold, steam curling off 1,000 rooftops, church bells rolling across the hills like they've got somewhere to be. Somewhere down there, a paper boy is yelling headlines nobody's awake enough to hear yet, and a river cuts the whole place clean in half like somebody drew a line on purpose. For about 10 seconds, this is the most beautiful place you've ever seen. And then the smoke rolls in. The factory whistles start screaming, and Victoria remembers exactly what it actually is underneath all that gold light. A city built, quite deliberately, on two very different kinds of morning. Out east, past the parks and the marble boulevards, you've got the Diamond District. Wrought iron gates, silk curtains, breakfast served on porcelain that costs more than most people's rent, carried by servants who never make a sound. This is the Victoria you'd see on a postcard, the one the city actually wants you to remember. Clean streets, polished lampposts, gardens trimmed within an inch of their lives, and just a little too pleased with itself for a place that's never once had to worry about the price of bread.
But cross the River Ash and you land somewhere else entirely. The Gray District. Narrower streets, older bricks, laundry strung between buildings like flags nobody bothered to take down. Chimney smokestacks up in gray columns over rooftops that lean into each other like old friends holding each other up. It smells like fresh bread and coal smoke and last night's rain, all at once. And somewhere a dog is barking at absolutely nothing important. Life here is hard. Nobody's pretending otherwise. It is also, somehow, absolutely alive in a way the Diamond District never quite manages.
First stop every morning, Mrs. Finch's flower stall, because apparently flowers prefer sunrise and nobody in 40 years has had the nerve to argue with her about it. She's got white lilies, roses still beaded with dew, and a stare that could cut glass if you show up a minute late. She hands our guy a slightly bruised white lily and tells him he's late again. The exact same joke she's made for 5 straight years running, and he laughs like it's brand new every single time. He takes the flower anyway. It's still beautiful. So is she, for the record. She just won't let anyone buy her that. Our guy, by the way, is Cass Blackwell, 17 years old, dressed like he's got a dinner invitation from the king, and somehow everybody in this market knows his name before he's said 2 words. The cobbler waves and thanks him for whatever his father did to those boots. A vendor tosses him an apple he never asked for. Then a kid comes barreling through the crowd, nearly knocks him flat, and instead of getting annoyed, Cass just quietly kneels down and hands the kid a spool of thread, because he'd already noticed the torn sleeve before the kid even knew it was ripped. Nobody taught this boy to be polite. Somebody taught him to actually pay attention. There is a very big difference, and this chapter is about to spend a lot of time on it.
Next stop, Gideon's Bakery, where the smell alone could talk you into a loaf you cannot afford, which is exactly what happens. Kaz has 7 copper coins in his pocket and a running bakery debt going back to age 12 that Gideon has never once actually collected on. Turns out, Gideon still remembers the day Kaz's father fixed his wedding coat for absolutely nothing because, and I quote, "A man only gets married once, his suit ought to fit." So the big, broad-shouldered baker just tosses a warm loaf across the counter like it's nothing and waves off the coins entirely. This family has a type, and it is not remotely subtle.
Which brings us to the actual shop, Blackwell Tailoring. Established over 200 years ago, brass sign swinging gently in the wind like it's seen some things and isn't in a hurry to tell you about any of them. Cass walks in exactly on time, bread under one arm, lilies in the other, and his dad, without even looking up from his work, announces that he's 32 seconds early. Not a minute, not close enough, 32 exact seconds. This is a family that measures literally everything, especially, as we're about to find out, each other. Meet Alder Blackwell, master tailor. Silver threaded through his dark hair, spectacles riding low on his nose, and a workshop so unnervingly organized that Cass has genuinely never once seen his father make a mess. Not one time. Ever. Before Cass has even said a word,
Alder already knows he's got bread tucked under one arm and a lily for Mrs. Finch under the other, flour dust on the sleeve, a lily that only ever shows up on Thursdays. That's it. That's the entire trick, laid bare in about 2 seconds flat. Except with this man, it is never, ever just a trick.
Alder's favorite hobby, it turns out, is quietly interrogating his son using nothing but fabric. He hands Cass a bolt of deep navy wool and just says, "What do you see?" Cass rattles off the obvious stuff without missing a beat. Tightly woven, clearly imported, probably Northern Mills. All correct. Also completely not the point. Because the second Cass stops rattling off facts and actually feels the dye, the weave, the care stitched into every inch of it, Alder's whole face lights up. "There," he says, "you finally stopped looking and started seeing." A man tells you what something is. A craftsman tells you its whole story. Keep that line in your back pocket, because it is going to matter a lot more than tailoring by the end of this chapter.
3 soft knocks at the door. Not loud, not urgent, perfectly spaced. And Alder's whole posture changes for exactly half a second before he catches himself and plays it off like nothing happened. In walks Professor Rowan. Ebony cane, a military neat beard, and the unmistakable energy of a man who has never once in his entire life been in the neighborhood purely by accident. Alder pours tea like they're just 2 old friends catching up, and over the next 10 minutes, they have what might genuinely be the single most boring conversation in recorded history. Road construction, a relocated fish market, a checkpoint that apparently now stays open past midnight for no clearly stated reason. Cass tunes out entirely somewhere around the fish market. That, it turns out, is a pretty big mistake.
Because the second the professor's out the door, Alder turns and quizzes him. Not what did you hear, what did you learn? There's a difference, apparently, and Cass has absolutely nothing to offer. So Alder just points him toward the window, out at the street, where a city guard is quietly pocketing a small leather pouch handed over by a visibly nervous vendor, never once bothering to check what's actually inside it. The first thing your eyes notice is rarely the truth. The second thing, the thing you almost missed, that's where wisdom actually begins. Kaz takes this as a tidy little life lesson about honesty and paying attention. We, on the other hand, are extremely suspicious this is about something else entirely. Then, completely out of nowhere, mid-stitch, Alder asks his son how exactly he'd sabotage a perfectly good coat without a single soul ever noticing. Cass, genuinely horrified, says he'd never do such a thing. Alder just tilts his head and says, "Suppose you had absolutely no choice." And Cass, after one long beat of actually thinking it through, nails it immediately. Cut the shoulder seam half an inch too low. The coat will sit wrong for months. The customer will blame his own posture, his own weight, anything but the coat itself, and nobody will ever trace it back. A single careless cut, Alder says quietly, setting down his shears, can undo months of work. So can a single careless decision. We are, almost entirely certain, still technically talking about tailoring. Probably. Afternoon rolls in, and 3 completely different men walk through that door practically together. A dock worker built like a shipping crate, a shiny young banker who has clearly never done a single hour of manual labor in his life, and a city constable wearing suspiciously fresh riding gear for a man who's supposedly been walking a beat all day. Alder greets every single one of them exactly the same way. Same warm good afternoon, same easy smile, same unhurried respect. Whether you're hauling cargo off the docks or running numbers at the Royal Treasury. In this shop, everyone who walks through that door is simply a customer, and every customer gets the exact same tailor. Kaz takes one look at the dock worker's stance, the slight favoring on one side, and already knows exactly which shoulder seam is torn, before the man said a single word about it. The dock worker just laughs, shakes his head, and says, "You're becoming just like your old man, you know that?" Honestly, completely fair. And Kaz doesn't even try to argue. Then the young banker, Julian Ashcombe, fresh off a brand new appointment at the Royal Treasury, asks for a suit that's, in his words, worthy of the office. Alder asks the actual real question underneath that request. Not what should it look like, but what should it say? Cass picks the color without even blinking. Navy. Not black, that reads like a funeral. Not burgundy, that's flashy and forgettable in 6 months. Navy says you'll still be standing here in 20 years, steady, trustworthy, unshakable. The young banker is genuinely stunned. Nobody's ever explained psychology to him through a bolt of fabric before in his entire life. Alder just smiles and says, a good tailor doesn't make clothes, he makes first impressions. File that particular line under things that sound just a little too useful for a simple tailor to know.
Last up, Constable Marcus Hale, who insists, very casually, that he just needs a single button replaced. Cass clocks the truth in about 4 seconds flat. Faint scorch marks along one sleeve, mud caked on only one boot, a sword sitting at a slightly different angle on his hip than it should for a man walking a normal patrol all day. This man wasn't patrolling, he was riding hard, somewhere that has clearly left marks he's not supposed to talk about. The constable throws his head back and laughs. You missed your calling, son! And Alder, sewing away without even glancing up, mutters something that lands a whole lot heavier than it sounds. One day, he'll learn to notice the things people don't want noticed. Even Alder looks briefly, genuinely surprised he said that part out loud.
The rest of the afternoon is just Blackwell tailoring being exactly, quietly, what it's always been. A widow gets her late husband's old coat carefully repaired instead of tossed out and replaced. A young couple buys modest wedding clothes with coins they've very obviously spent months scraping together. A chimney sweep's apprentice, still dusted head to toe in soot, pays 12 copper coins for a torn vest and gets treated like visiting royalty for it. By the time the shop finally closes for the day, the ledger reads 23 silver, 86 copper. Enough to eat comfortably, nowhere near enough to get rich. And Alder does not seem to care about that gap even slightly. As the light starts going gold and low, Cass looks out at the street. Mrs. Finch packing up her unsold flowers for the night, Gideon slipping a free roll to a hungry kid loitering by the bakery door, the old cobbler helping his even older neighbor up a set of icy steps, and Cass admits, quietly, that he'd like to see the Diamond District someday. Just once. Turns out Alder's actually been offered a shop over there. Twice. Turned it down flat both times. My customers live here. My friends live here. My memories live here. A tailor belongs exactly where he's needed, not where the money happens to be easiest. It's a genuinely lovely little moment. Absolutely nobody in the scene notices the man in the wide-brimmed hat standing perfectly still across the street in the thickening fog, just watching the shop. Patiently. We notice, though. We're always noticing now. Night falls, the shop's locked up tight, and Alder pulls out a needle thinner than a single strand of hair to finish Julian's navy coat by warm, flickering lamplight. Anyone, he says, threading it carefully, can make the outside of something beautiful. He flips the coat inside out to show off stitching so clean and precise that not one living soul who ever wears it will actually see it. It takes real integrity, he continues, to make the unseen parts beautiful too. Cass has heard a lot of his father's little sayings over 17 years of living above this shop. Something about this particular one, delivered so quietly, sticks in a noticeably different way.
They keep working in comfortable, companionable silence until Alder, without even glancing up from his own work, quietly calls out one single crooked stitch Cass made a few minutes back, while his mind was clearly somewhere else entirely. One mistake becomes two, Alder says, the moment a man decides it's too small to bother correcting. Is that supposed to be tailoring advice? Cass asks. Yes, his father says simply, and everything else too. And that's the exact moment Cass finally works up the nerve to ask the question he's clearly been sitting on for years. What exactly is inside that one locked drawer his father's kept hidden in plain sight this entire time, beneath the far cabinet, never once opened in front of him.
Things I am not yet ready to give you. Not a joke this time, not even close to one. When Cass, a little quieter now, asks whether he'll ever get to open it, his father just says yes and leaves it sitting exactly there, unexplained. Instead, almost as a peace offering, Alder shows him something else. A hidden pocket sewn deep into the banker's coat lining, tucked where no one would ever think to look. Not for coins, he explains carefully, for letters, for names, for memories a man might need to carry but never wants seen. Sometimes, he says, the most important things a man carries are never meant for public view. Subtle, Dad. Very, very subtle.
When the very last stitch is finally done, Alder holds the finished coat up in the warm lamplight, turns it slowly to check the line of it, and tells Cass it's his, not the coat itself, the work inside it. I corrected nothing, he says simply, and lets that sit. For one brief, unguarded second, 17-year-old, always composed, always watching, Cass Blackwell looks exactly like a little kid who just got told he did good, really good, all on his own. He earned this one. He clearly knows he earned it. And somehow that makes it matter even more, not less.
11 o'clock at night. Alder's moving slowly around the shop, putting out lamps one by one, and right at the back door, he suddenly stops and says something that does not belong anywhere near a normal bedtime conversation. If a day ever comes, he says, when the world asks you to choose between what is lawful and what is right, do not answer too quickly. Cass laughs it off, calls it a genuinely strange thing to say right before sleep. His father just agrees with him, easily, warmly, and does not, notably, take a single word of it back.
Cass heads on upstairs to bed. Alder lingers by the front window a little while longer, alone in the dark, and looks directly across the street, straight at the man who is somehow still standing there, motionless in the rain and the dark. Neither one of them moves for a long, long moment. Then Alder simply reaches up, pulls the curtain shut, and turns away, calm as anything in the world. Like this happens. Like somehow this has happened plenty of times before tonight.
Except the night, it turns out, is not actually over yet. 3 knocks at the door, 2 quick and 1 slow, deliberate. And standing there in the pouring rain is a total stranger named Dorian Mercer. Scarred beard, a heavily weathered traveling coat, and a tear running the full length of one sleeve that he blames on catching on a wagon axle out on the road. The very second he and Alder actually lock eyes, something flickers fast across Alder's face. Not suspicion exactly. Recognition. And it's gone again in well under half a second. Cass almost convinces himself he imagined the whole thing.
While Alder's busy examining the actual tear in the coat, Cass, because of course he does, quietly starts reading this stranger too. Mud on his boots from 2 completely different roads, layered on top of each other. Expensive gloves paired oddly with a cheap worn belt. And his hands, thin, precise old scar lines cut clean across the knuckles, the kind that have absolutely nothing to do with any honest kind of hard labor. These are not a merchant's hands, not even close. Mercer catches him staring dead on and simply says, "You've got sharp eyes, boy." Cass, completely deadpan, says his father insists they're still fairly dull. Mercer, not even remotely joking back, says, "Then your father must see things the rest of us simply can't." Mercer tries to pay for what should be a simple, cheap repair with 5 entire gold coins, more than enough to cover it several times over with room to spare. Alder hands 4 of them straight back without even a second's hesitation. This repair costs 64 silver, he says plainly, no more than that. Mercer looks genuinely thrown by that, maybe for the first time all night. You'd actually refuse a gold eagle? Alder just nods once. I would refuse 5. Turns out the old stories are apparently true after all. There really is one completely honest tailor left standing in the whole city of Victoria. Alder's response lands far quieter than you'd expect from a man who just turned down that much money. Honesty shouldn't be remarkable, he says. Mercer, just as quiet, just as measured. No, it really shouldn't be.
Right before he steps back out into the rain, Mercer turns, looks straight at Cass, and says something that is going to hit very, very differently in hindsight. "Keep listening to him," he says. "Most fathers teach their sons how to earn a living. Very, very few teach them how to actually understand people." And then he's gone, swallowed up into the rain and the dark, just like that. From across the street, that same hooded watcher finally peels off the wall and follows him quietly into the night, completely unnoticed by either Blackwell this time. Upstairs, the very last lamp in the house finally goes out, and somewhere below, behind a locked drawer that has never once in 17 years been opened in front of his son, the very first secret of the Blackwell family has just started, very quietly, to unravel. And that, right there, is Chapter 1. Honestly, we haven't even gotten to the good part yet.